Hello, everyone. Welcome to Limbo. My name is Ron. Today, I have the pleasure to share my conversation with Michal. So, this is very important. This is the first part of two episodes. So Mikal is an expert on community building, on finding meaning. He really enjoys games and decks of cards, and we talk a lot about that throughout our conversation. Also, his journey to get to where he is. But the main core of our talk is this idea that Mikal had of doing a journey to Antarctica and in using that as a way to create a community and to have like a communal experience. And so in this first episode we talk about what are some of his goals for that journey and how he's thinking about approaching it. But I was fortunate enough to record this conversation before Mikal went, and then once he came back, actually recording the second episode where we explore his journey and how things went. So make sure that you check both episodes. This is episode 1, and then go and listen to episode 2. Now, a very quick word for our sponsors, the SocraticExperience.com, the school where I work on and where we're trying to revolutionize education through the Socratic method. Second, Contexto, the nonprofit that allows for Limbo to exist. And third, the restaurant that gives name to the podcast, Limbo Restaurant in Lisbon. If you're there, ask for a discount. Said that the old upstairs neighbor send you there. Maybe you'll have a discount, maybe you won't. You'll be in limbo until you know. Now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Michal. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Limbo. My name is João, and today with me I have Michal Korzonek, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Michal. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Ah, you're welcome. So, there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about sailing. I want to talk about magic. I want to talk about communities. But my first question is, can you tell me, like, where are you from? Like, Korzonek, it's not a regular name for English people. So, tell me a little bit about that. Like, what's your origin story,
Uh,
literally?
well, the origin story, I was born in Poland, and yeah, I lived there for some time, and then I left. The kind of common story, became nomad, sort of thing. Lived in Austria for a while, moved to Edinburgh for 7 years, then nomaded all around the world, sort of. And yeah, then the life threw me into Portugal. I lived in Azores for a while. That used to be my home. Then moved to Amsterdam, and now it's a bit more nomadic part of my life again.
Yeah. So, tell me something. What made you want to go and have, like, this nomadic style of life?
Yeah, it's I guess it's this part that wants to see a bit more and just explore the world, and also it just always felt that I'm curiosity driven in many things that I do. So it just felt like, hey, I want to go and explore places. And there's lots of places that are unexplored. And then, interestingly, through all these explorations and moving around, I did realize that, yeah, the nomadic part is great, but actually having a base is also essential for me. So now I'm definitely leaning more towards the semi-nomadic lifestyle where there is a base, there is a home, but also there's plenty of time for exploration and also moving slower rather than faster. So I'm not so much excited anymore about just like moving, but I would rather go to a place and stay there for 3 months or 2 months and then keep coming back to the same place even over, different cycles. So do this kind of seasonal living, let's put it this
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. That's such a, so you mentioned like being curiosity driven. I love that. One of the questions I always ask when people mention something similar to that is that, do you think that that's a natural gift that you've had, or do you think that was something that was nurtured while you were growing up?
It's probably both. I feel like it was always a part of me, and in the same time, I guess it probably was cultivated through just the experience that I had. So, the more I traveled or the more I tried different things and have amazing experiences, it's just self-reinforcing loop of, oh yeah, this is great. Let's go again.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, definitely. Like, traveling is one of those aspects where, like, once you travel, you start to wonder, well, what is it like? I don't know. You go to a country or you go to a specific city, and you're surprised by how different the culture is or how different the world is from what you're used to. And then you think about the full scale of the world. At least to me was that, and part of me thought, well, I wonder what's out there as well, right? And it
Mm.
automatically increases your curiosity. Um, okay, great. So walk me through. I always like to ask this question because a lot of times people listen to podcasts with people that have all of these different projects, and you're one of them, and they think like how did they end up there? So I guess that, can you tell us a little bit about a story on, and just to give some context, like I already gave an intro about you and your projects before, but like walk us through how you end up like where you are right now, sailing the world and doing all of these different events and being a catalyst wizard, which I really want to explore.
Yeah, it's sometimes I'm asking myself the same question, but it somehow feels natural. When I look kind of, in hindsight, when I look back at my life, of course, it's easier to do it from the
A distance.
now perspective and look backwards. It didn't feel always this way, and it's still, when I look into what's going to be next, it's a big question mark in some ways. But it does feel like there was this few parallel threads in my life that just somehow felt like they're a bit separate, but then eventually they started weaving together and became almost symbiotic, which feels very nice to be in this place. So first is art and theater, performing arts. I've been part of theater since I was 1 year old, so pretty much from the very start. And then that shifted into film. So then I went to film school, I studied film. And then through the studying of film, I realized that actually I miss the stage and this kind of live interaction and
Mm-hmm.
this unique nature of a performance when it never repeats again because it's always different. And I gravitated towards interactive performances. So creating interactions where there is no script or there is like a very basic script, but actually everything depends on the relationship with the performer and
Audience.
the audience. And
Yeah.
actually there is no audience. And I started to call the people that come to the performances variables because that felt kind of more
Mm,
more
that's so
accurate.
interesting. Yeah.
So that was one thread, and that through that I developed this whole skill set around performing and interacting and creating on the spot and just
Yeah.
freestyling my way through anything that can be thrown my way and just develop this whole, the magical powers of creating environments and worlds that then can be explored and interact with by the variables or audience
Mm-hmm.
or whoever comes and interacts with it. So that was one part, and then the other part was facilitation. So kind of from maybe early high school time, I was facilitating different groups in different contexts. And again, it kind of started semi randomly. My mother was working in this youth center in Poland, and I was, because of that, I was participating in many activities and many groups. And then there was these organizations that I got involved in, European Youth Parliament and this Youth in Action program. And, I was
Uh-huh.
just doing that. And very quickly I realized I'm actually very good at holding the group together.
Mm,
So I just went into that immediately. So at the age of 17, I was facilitating basically, and it kind of became this thing that I do. So that was like a parallel track that was just growing in my life. And I was just honing the skills for years. Some of it was also useful as a director of, stage
mm-hmm.
performances or making films. It was also facilitation, just in a different context.
Yeah.
Um, and then the third part that became quite a big thing for me was the sailing. And that started just as a friend who invited me when I was maybe 12, I think, to sail with him on a boat of his father. So we went into this complex of lakes that we have in northeast Poland, which is just like hundreds of lakes connected together, and you can spend time there. It's amazing, beautiful, beautiful part of Poland. So we sailed there for a week with some friends from my school, and I liked it, but it was not, it didn't blow my mind as a sailing and thing, I just kind of was there hanging out with my friends. We were playing role play games and just, enjoying ourselves. But it got me curious enough that I came back next year to do a proper sailing course. And that
Mm-hmm.
was like 2 weeks training to get my first papers for those little small lake boats. and I loved it. It blew my mind. I mean, I had an amazing captain. I had a really nice crew. I was feeling like not just that I'm good at it, but there's something really powerful for me there that just was really touching me on a deeper level.
Mm,
And from there, I just kept coming back. So I started organizing my trips and, just invite my friends from high school and we would rent a boat and then we would rent three boats the next year. And it just kind of kept on going. Um, and yeah, and then I moved to Edinburgh and I stopped sailing. It was kind of strange because then every summer I was doing something different. So almost the sailing
yeah.
kind of disappeared from my life, but then it came
Mm-hmm.
back again. I went to sea. I had an amazing experience with an amazing captain that I really connected with super well on many levels. And from there, it just kind of I decided like, yeah, I want this. So I put more energy into, sailing and developing my experience as a sailor.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty of things to learn, and the only way to do it is by sailing. I can't learn it from a book or some things, but not
Yeah.
everything. And then I had another gap, like a long gap, because then I moved to a business kind of world. I fell on
Mm.
this wagon of location independent, 4-hour work week inspired entrepreneurship. So for
Okay.
some years, I was like really focused on that. And that took me away from sailing. And it was interesting to observe that it was something that I almost like it was this goal where I'm going, like, hey, I'm building all this business life so I can
Mm.
sail more, but somehow it actually just delays the sailing. So I
Yeah.
I think I had a break of maybe 6 years, which feels now kind of ridiculous that I
Yeah.
let myself so long, like postponing the thing that I actually wanted to do. And then eventually I had this moment where, it almost felt magical. Like there was this like
Yeah.
I was having a walk in Pico Island and I've just seen this almost like two paths, in front of me. And one path is I accept that sailing is something I do, once a year. I go with friends, we rent a boat, we have fun, it's great. Or it's a path that is something that is integrated in my life.
Yeah.
And I knew that this is what I need to do. So then I went to a commercial sailing school for tow ships, and that just kind of changed my life. I relocated to Amsterdam for a year, and yeah, got my license. Well, now I'm in kind of the practice time, so I still need to spend. I think I have 3 months sailing left to get. It's like a driving
Yeah.
license. You first have the theory 6 months, and then you have the practical. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing now, and
That's
now it all connects together.
yeah. That's such a great answer. I have so many questions about like three different things, but let me start with sailing. You said that when you were there for the first time, um, something touched you within, like and have you figured out what it was about sailing that had like that impact on
Mm.
you?
I'm still kind of in the process of discovering it, but I feel it's a few different pieces. There's I mean, the way that I describe it, and this is maybe especially the case for this kind of more adventurous sailing trips, kind of, going to sea, maybe going to a bit more rougher conditions or just more difficult trips.
Mm-hmm.
But it can be the case for other as well. It does feel like some kind of, almost like an ayahuasca trip. It's so intense in many ways because it's just you surrounded by water and
Mm.
you feel so tiny in,
Mm.
it's a very empowering feeling. Like this is the interesting bit. It doesn't feel terrifying to me. Like, yes, there is a healthy dose of fear and there's for sure acceptance of death. But I mean, you can die at any point. You can get hit by a car
Yeah.
randomly on the street. So I don't know if it's more risky, but you do feel the risk kind of more. And because of that, you become much more mindful of how you move, how you walk, like every action that you take, it's more grounded in your body and you're just somehow more present and more aware. And the fact that you create this little ecosystem with people who are on board, it just somehow really intensifies your experience. And you have to somehow be a good team and you have to make it work, even if you don't like someone personally, just because like this is your world. It's not like you can leave. It's
Yeah.
you're on that little space and you're in the middle of everything and somehow this boat magically floats through the water and you can go anywhere. And there's just like so much depth in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I find myself that sailing brings me to this most profound, continuous, meditative like state. And it's not like Vipassana, it's not like I'm just sitting and meditating, not speaking to anyone and just going fully within, but I'm just naturally dropped into that environment when I'm sailing. It just
Yeah.
puts me there immediately. And then you just have this beautiful moments of interacting with the natural world around you. And the stereotypical dolphins come to the ship and play around with you, and you
Yeah.
see incredible things, that whether it's usually the natural water related, weather related phenomena that just are incredible, and it's not something you can see on land. So like this whole context just feels very profound in some way. Like it feels like I'm tapping into something that is very powerful inside of me.
Mm-hmm.
And usually get a lot of dreams, and they're usually very intense and very vivid. I rest quite well, like if it's, apart from the more intense times. And also the connections that you can build at sea, because depending, of course, what kind of trips are you a part of, but you
Mm.
meet people from really different walks of life that are somehow still connected by this love of the sea. And, there's this vibe of radical self-reliance that also is something I enjoy, being also a burner. Um, you have also this feeling of capacity. I mean, there's always something that breaks every single time on every boat. There's always stuff that breaks and you have to fix it. It's not like
Yeah.
you know, assistance will come. I mean, maybe it will come, but it's going to be in 70 hours, depending where you are, if you're lucky. So it's a very different mentality. It's like very much DIY. This is what we have. We're here. We have to figure it out, and we will, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's probably more, but that's just kind of the general umbrella.
Yeah, so first of all, great answer. And I love the fact that you're relating that with like the acceptance of death and how that makes you automatically feel more alive because, like this is, as you're saying, like this is it. This is where we are. We can just run away. This is like our reality right now. Such a great answer. Let me ask you something. What was the, have you ever had any moment while sailing where that fear of death just was very present where you were like, well, you know what? I may not survive this. Have you ever had that? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Mm, I mean, maybe not exactly in this way, but usually, I think so far, always before I step on the boat, like the last night or two,
Mm,
I don't
mm,
sleep too well, and it's like this anxiety-driven, like,
mm.
why am I doing this?
Yeah,
What am I putting myself into? Kind of vibe. So I can have that quite a bit. And that disappears the moment I step on board, which is interesting
beautiful.
to notice. Like the moment I'm there, it's like it's gone. And I do remember when I don't remember which sailing trip it was, but it was like one of my kind of early sea trips on yachts. And I was sleeping, so I was just, off watch. And I just didn't really trust the guys who were on watch sailing.
Mm,
And that definitely brought some anxiety. It was like,
mm-mm.
I know that if I would be out there, it would be fine, but there's something very interesting about surrendering your control as well to, okay, there's this other guy who, they're a nice person, but I don't see they're very competent in what they're doing sailing
Mm,
wise. And I don't fully trust they will make the right decision, which can be, like they don't need to figure it out themselves, but sometimes it's as simple as wake up the captain and ask what to do, right?
yeah,
You don't have to always do it yourself. In fact, you shouldn't. If you have doubts, that's what captain is for.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I do remember there was this one night that I was just not sleeping well because I just didn't have trust in the people that were piloting the boat when I was resting. So I
Mm,
didn't rest actually. It was kind
yeah,
of shitty. And at the end it was fine. Like, of course nothing happened and it was a good night, and eventually like this feeling also disappeared. I think
it's
it's also
away.
like
Yeah,
trust building. But yeah, I did have this feeling. So but I never had really this direct experience of feeling
Oh
like,
shit,
oh
we're
fuck,
going
I'm
to
going to
die.
die now.
Yeah,
It's more
exactly.
like, hey, there were situations where it was more on edge in a sense
Yeah,
that, I did experience one moment when another boat was close to crashing into us, like a small sailing ship. But then my mind or my body just went into like very automatic emergency
flow
response
state.
mode.
Yeah,
So I just kind of, yeah, I was just doing exactly what I needed to do and avoided the collision, and it was perfect. Like I
yeah,
responded exactly how I should have, but I did not even think about it. Or,
yeah,
sometimes when I have to, I don't know, like climb a mast a bit and work with sails when it's more
yeah,
windy and a bit scary, then again, like I don't feel it's the fear is there, but it translates into the experience of just I'm very present. I'm paying attention to every single step. I'm double checking if I'm clipped in. Am I holding this thing right? When is the wave coming? That is, the higher one, because there's always like there's patterns to waves. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, it's more presence than being terrified, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
exactly. Is that level of fear or anxiety that makes you very present and not overwhelms you with
Yeah.
to paralyze you? Such a great answer. Okay, I definitely want to go a little bit more into selling and what the actual project that you're doing right now. But I want to take a step back. You mentioned performance and being able to freestyle, etc. Just to give you some context, I went into I have a couple of different companies in education. I'm in that business world and education world, but before that, I was actually a jazz musician, and so I spent like years studying jazz in high school and then in college, etc. And the first time that I actually and yeah, I wanted to be the best jazz guitar player in Portugal. Like this was like a real goal. I had a bunch of bands I was playing all around, and then I had a wrist injury that kind of made me switch careers. I remember that the first time that I ended up doing, I co-founded a corporate training company, and I went to this course on emotional intelligence. And I remember that there was this one moment where I realized that for the first part of the first morning, I had already said everything that I wanted for the full day. And so I was like, I had a 10-minute break when I realized that, and I was panicking. I was like, fuck, what I'm going to do? Like, how am I supposed to do this? And I said that in that 10-minute break, like, I spent one panicking and nine improvising. And I came up with a bunch of different games that people could do in order to, like, test their emotions, etc. And it went absolutely great. By the end of the course, everyone said that that was their favorite moment. And when I was reflecting about it, I realized, okay, so how did I do that? And I realized that spending years and years studying how to improvise in the guitar and how to improvise in jazz made me extremely good at improvising in real life, no matter what happens. And I feel like you had the same experience in terms of freestyle as you were saying, like the fact that once you're able to work with variables, which by the way is such a good term, once you're able to work with variables, like everything in every context becomes a variable, right? And so if you're able to operate that in an audience, or in a performance, you're also able to operate that in a boat. So I guess that I have two questions for you because I'm really obsessed with this. The first one is, do you think that that can be taught? That's the first one. Can we teach people that are not on the performance side or they are not jazz musicians to develop this skill? And the second thing is, if you think that can be taught, how would you teach this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm kind of doing that in an indirect way.
Awesome.
But yeah, in one of my projects is cards. I mean, I use cards as a medium. And when I say cards, I mean just blank cards. And that's yeah, it's for me, it's my favorite medium. And I use it for facilitation purposes. So, I create books with that with teams. Yeah, but also I have this more, let's say, artistic side where I host card sessions. And, when I say cards in that context, there is some, let's call it like tarot inspired vibe, but it's very, very, very different than that. And one of the kind of key principles of the card sessions that I'm hosting is that there are no rules. And this is something that I keep. repeating and emphasizing through the session until people get it. And this is, I feel, a little bit of like indirect answer to your question. So what I found, like through different type of interactions, because yeah, I guess I'm also get bored, like it did happen that when
Mm-hmm.
I was younger, I was hosting parties or going to parties, like normal, house parties, and I was just getting bored because it was always the same stuff, like
Yeah.
some people get drunk, some crazy stories happen, people make out of each other, okay, but like how can we make it more interesting? What can we do to like really make it funky? So I started to build like art installations on parties and stuff like that. And I think, it's like then I started doing stuff on festivals and just experiment with approaching people and like, hey, let's make something. So basically where it led me to is developing this card experiences where um they're designed to put people in this magical ring where everything is possible. So it's like the safe container where you can be, and it's all nice, and everything is consent based. So like you can always say no to things you don't like, and there's this basic parameter of safety. And from there, the cards are designed to facilitate creating invitations that just change the way how people relate with each other.
Each other.
So this is all completely freestyling. I mean, I when I show up to a card session, I have no clue what's going to happen
Mm-hmm.
because there are no rules, and it literally means that anything can happen, and stuff does happen. I've seen cards being burned during the session. I've seen people crying, people laughing, all sort of different types of interactions. And this is something that it's just this very interesting moment, because what I've seen is, okay, there are some people that are very naturally um, not just necessarily good, but it's just this kind of obvious thing for them that, oh, they can interact with the game. Like, hey, if I pull a card, I can actually choose whatever I want it to be, right? So let's make this kind of invitation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's play with our feet and do a foot fight. Whatever. Anything goes, because again there are no rules, but for some people there's like this massive barrier. It's almost
Mm-hmm.
like, and how it usually manifests itself is asking for permission for everything, and sometimes it
Mm-hmm.
can get absurd, like, can I draw another card? Oh, can I flip it over now? Can I tell
Yeah.
you what I see on the card? Just asking for permission for every single
Yeah.
thing. And my response to it is, there are no rules. There are no rules. There are no
There are
rules.
no rules.
And I deliberately say it this way rather than yes, you can, to just keep instilling this idea like, no, you can do
You
anything
can
you
do whatever.
want.
Yeah.
And whenever people get it, it feels profound, man. Like there's this glimmer in their eyes. There's like something happens, because obviously, like, yes, we are playing cards and it's a fun experience, but of course you can match that to real life, right? Like if I
Mm-hmm.
remove the magical ring and I remove the cards, like there's no difference. It's still
Mm-hmm.
exactly the same life experience.
Yeah.
And this can be quite profound. And I feel like it is not maybe directly teaching the improvisation, but it is kind of, because it just basically allows people to be themselves and do the thing that they actually want to do in the space that is designed for it. Because of course,
Mm-hmm.
like you could also argue some spaces, are not good for some things, so maybe just don't do it there. But this space
Mm-hmm.
is precisely for that. Like you can show up as you are and do whatever you want. And if it's, a kind of not a thing that you should be doing, then you can always say no, right? So there's always this
Yeah.
possibility of, yeah, just just not consenting to some activity.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, yeah, what I found, that
Yeah.
you can teach this going for what you feel is the right thing, and that's improvisation for me, because you cannot really plan it in advance. Like
Yeah.
I can't, like, I have some ideas of how a session could go, and I've done hundreds of them, so of course there are some kind of scripts that I could follow in, and I know that those things tend to work better for this kind of groups or
Yeah.
this kind of people. But in the end, the best sessions happen when people actually take ownership and they surprise me with, oh, let's do it this way now. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, great. Now I have to also be a participant fully, not a facilitator.
Yeah.
And that for me makes it the most exciting, because then we are level with each other and we're both participating on the same level. And of course, I can always take responsibility for the hosting. Like if
Yeah.
we get stuck or if something is not flowing, I have a myriad of tricks I can deploy to get us going. But actually, I mostly don't need to
Don't need to do
because
that. Yeah.
people are generally amazing, you know?
Yeah. That's it's one of those that's one of those beliefs that I feel like everyone that works as a facilitator, as a trainer in education, you need to have that belief. Like people are amazing, people are fucking amazing, and they're
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
awesome. Because I feel like that facilitates your job like 10x. Because it's so easier to be present with someone and help them like through whatever it is if you believe that those people are actually amazing. And that was such a great answer. And I feel like yeah, like a couple of months ago, I was invited by this big company in Portugal to give a talk for their team on how to improvise, basically, and how to be able to deal with that. And one of the things that I feel like I've tried to say to everyone that really wants to own this, and I feel like part of it is relates with your answer not only about this but also about sailing, is that you need to accept reality, not what you think reality is but what actual reality is, right? Like because most of the times the only way you get to improvise in a way that's actually meaningful to you is by understanding, by playing with what you have instead of playing what you wish you had, right? And so this acceptance of, okay, this is reality. Like something break on the boat. Okay, well, it is what it is. There's no point in being, oh, but why didn't, like, it should have been happening like that. And I feel like working on this acceptance is one of the key things that you can do in order to build not only improvisation but also to be able to live a better life. And I feel like part of what you're saying in terms of like when you're playing with the cards, accepting that, because a lot of people I would assume, especially if I don't know with what kind of people are doing this with you, but like there's a lot of people that are always looking for structures. At least that's my experience. When you're trying to do something, it's like, but what are the rules of the game again? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how I win this? Like, what do you mean by there? Right? And so being able to just share this and say, well, look, this is, instead of being trapped by what you think this should be, just start by accepting what it is and then move on with that. And I guess my question is, like, is there any way or any strategy that you use to facilitate this feeling of, acceptance of the
Mm,
game, acceptance of the card, acceptance of sailing?
yeah, it's a good question. What is coming up for me when you're mentioning this need for structure and just like understanding the rules. So like in terms of cards, I think that's a good example. Like you always, so usually if you tell people, hey, let's play a card game, or let's play a game, the first thing people expect you to do is, okay, now it's going to be this boring part that the guy
Where
will
you tell me
explain
the
the rules
rules.
and it's going to be super boring and I'm not going to get it
Yeah,
and we're going to just waste so much time and it's going to be annoying. Apart from the game geeks, right? Like the game mechanic geeks will love it. Like that's, they don't care about the game. They just want to know how it
yeah, tell me
works.
the rules. Yeah.
So but the majority of people just like they find it as a annoying hurdle. Like I think this is the
Mm-hmm.
reality of it. They enjoy the game when they get it, but like learning it, it's not really the nice part of it.
Fun.
So when I tell people like, so there are no rules, let's go. It's such an incredible, like you notice this
Vibe shift.
disbelief and a relief in the same
Mm.
time. It's like, ah, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we're just doing it already, so I guess we do it. Okay. And of course, the kind of to make it possible and to get real the buy-in from people, it's just creating the safety for it, So that's
Yeah.
the I think it's always that. Like if people feel safe enough that they can trust you and just go with whatever you're offering,
Mm.
um, then it's quite easy. In the context of sailing, of course, it's a bit different, but it's
Of
not
course.
really different because there is always this role of the captain and whoever is, professional crew on bigger sailing ships. And if you create this feeling of safety and you can trust your captain, you can trust the people that are the officers of the boat, you then really can trust that it's fine. Like if the captain is chilled, then why would you be nervous? Like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe you feel anxiety, but clearly this guy knows what they're
Here's
doing,
what he's
like
doing.
that's their
Yeah.
job. So maybe it's not such a bad thing, maybe it's not so scary and therefore you can really be more relaxed. So I guess there's it's it's a very different type of experience, but there's the similarity of
Yeah,
the
underlying
feeling of
principle.
safety and creating it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll also say, sorry, I would also say that a lot of people, when they think about improvising, or they think like they see like a game like your card games, like they feel like it's going to be basically navigating chaos. And it's like, and I love that you're mentioning the fact of the fear of, the captain or the facilitator, etc., because I feel like our job is to be able to help people navigate that chaos and tell, well, yeah, it's because a lot of people like think, well, if I'm improvising, and this is part of what I also try to instill when people ask me like, how can I improvise better? Well, you can train improvisation, right? And so, like, even though in the specific context you need to let it go, let everything go, and just be present, like, there's if I'm improvising, if I'm playing a song and I'm improvising a solo, the only reason I'm able to create something good is because, one, I'm in a moment, but also before I was in a moment, I learned all of the chords, all of the scales, all of the different patterns, so then I can be able to use them in there. And I feel like helping people understand that, if you're in a context where, you have a lot of freedom, it's like you can navigate that freedom even better if before actually being that contest you spend a little bit of time thinking about, you know how can I make sure that this is a controlled freedom, or how can I make sure that this is a controlled chaos. And I feel like a lot of like people playing the game, playing the cards with you, they probably don't have to do this, but yourself as a facilitator, you need to, I would assume that you need to be able to, understand the game that you're asking or inviting people to play, and understand and have the experience of going through a bunch of different games, realizing, okay, these are the patterns that happen. Okay, okay, I know that if people start crying, I can do this and this, and if people like start, making out, I can do this and this. But then it's like once you're there, it's like complete freedom. Let's see what the group will tell us.
Yeah.
Um, okay, I want to ask like two questions before we actually go into like your mega selling project. Um, the first one is like you mentioned being a facilitator from a very early age. I absolutely love that. Can you tell me like if you were to tell like a basic fundamental principle of facilitating, what would that be? Like, let's say that someone wants to become a facilitator and they want to learn one thing from you. What would you say is the key to be a good facilitator?
Mm. I mean, basing on kind of also what you were mentioning earlier, I like this saying that just be over prepared and under structured. And I
Mm,
feel this is something that when I was in the early days of my facilitation, when I was like facilitating teams in European Youth Parliament, um, I was always interested in learning different activities and games and techniques that can be done. And that was always for me going way beyond, like we had these manuals, and there's always those manuals. There was like this whole time of, from different games from different organizations, and Youth in
yeah,
Action had its own book, and this kind of organization had its own book, and this organization had its different book. So, I consumed them all. But for me, there was so much more than this. So for example, like how I speak is a way that impacts the team. How I sit, it's also that. If I sit on a table rather than sitting on a chair, that creates a completely different feeling. If I'm
yes,
wearing a suit, it's different than if I'm just like wearing regular clothes. And if I swear, it's different. It's all those non obvious things are actual tools that you can play with. So, I would just experiment a lot. And it was quite funny because you could always see in EYP there were those facilitators that would have their sessions and their plan kind of structured. So they would just have like, we're gonna do this icebreaker, and it's gonna take 5 minutes, and then there's gonna be 10 minutes for this icebreaker, and then we're gonna play three getting to know games, and then we're gonna play like a conflict problem game for half an hour. And it was like all scripted. And my preparation was like piece of paper with 5 words written on it, which is like 5 different ideas.
yeah,
And that was it. No timing, no nothing.
yes,
Because I cannot possibly predict, like if I lock myself in this idea that I'm gonna do this activity, then this activity, then this activity, then
okay, like I understand the comfort that comes with it, that I can rely on, I can always fall back on the thing if I forget what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like rather than looking for that, what is more important for me is to tune into the present moment of the group and what they need, and really learn to trust my intuition in, no, this is what we're going to do now, scrap all these ideas that I had, let's do this. And
Mm-hmm.
this is also why I had the piece of paper. Like, that's the part of being over prepared. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if I would, suddenly find myself that, I don't know what to do now. Like, the guys are doing the thing. I have 5 minutes before, the time is up. And like, I'm just not sure. Oh, wait, there's this piece of paper that
Yeah.
suggests those couple of ideas that might be like, oh, games I learned from someone that I would like to try. And then boom,
Yeah.
let's go. So
Yeah.
this is kind of one piece that feels really good. And the other is just presence. Like now when I prepare for anything, whether it's a call, like important call, or I don't know, a presentation or whatever, I feel that it's so much more valuable for me to spend time on putting myself in the state where I feel, high energy, high vibe for the thing, rather than preparing intellectually for what I'm going to
100%.
say, and
Yes.
what I'm going to
Yes.
be
Yes.
writing and answering. Like, it's not that it's waste of time, but it's just like 100 times less effective than me just having a wee dance, and just
Yeah.
having a good time, whatever, right?
Because if yeah, definitely. Look, that totally resonates, and it's great to meet someone that so quickly gets it. Because I spend a lot of time like talking with people in education, and we talk about like how can we better the learning experiences, etc. And people obsess with, well, what's the most fun idea that I can like, how can I say this, or like what's the not how can I say this, what's the book that we're reading, or what's the quote, or what's the main idea. And part of my job at the Socratic Experience, which is the project I'm currently on, is to help other people to think about their classes and how to improve them. And and I always say, like, the key element is relationship. And it's
Mm,
twofold. It's the relationship that you have yourself as an educator, or as a facilitator, or as a guide, and the relationship that you have with whatever is in front of you. And as you were saying, like, sometimes the best thing that you can do is just to walk into a room and sit on top of a table, and you're communicating something that, no matter, like, you could have a 15 slide deck saying, these are the principles of my class. We want to have fun, we want to be free, we want to, you're gonna have, but then you sit down on the table and everyone's like, what? Like, I remember I had this story where I was once giving like this training for like these very high hand real estate entrepreneurs, and I was a very young kid. Sorry, I was a very young kid. I was probably like, when I was doing that, I was probably what, 21, in between 21 23, something like that. And um and I had this man, that, the people, like, some of the real estate agents were like, okay, I want to learn this, etc. But I had this one dude, that was like, he was sitting on his back of the chair, arms folded like this face that you could just see that he really thought that I was complete bullshit. He wouldn't learn anything from you. I was just a kid. What the hell am I doing here? I remember he was sitting like that, and like, when you're trying to facilitate, it's you cannot reach to everyone, and you know that some people are like, well, it is what it is. But I remember that I was talking about, like, the way we relate with different emotions and rejections, and how that brings like negative emotions. And when while I was saying this, like, and sometimes we feel negative emotions, he grabs his water bottle, because this was in this fancy hotel, so everyone had like bottles of water, etc. And he was like pouring the water, but he touched on the glass, and the glass basically like dropped on the table and wet the whole thing and the floor. And this was, like, I was saying that, well, and sometimes you feel negative emotions. This happens in a cell, like that person, I said his name, like, like Joao is feeling right now. And the whole room just turns their attention to him, and he gets really, really, like, anxious. And I told him, what you guys don't know is that I actually asked him to do exactly that in this moment, so I could have a practical example. So everyone started laughing, and the guy was like, oh wait, like, interesting. Like, he was able to grab this attention, this situation, like actually turned into something that was okay. And so I was finally able to grab his attention, and then we went to a break, and he came to me and said, you know what, when we first started, I thought that you were complete BS, but you're okay. You're actually okay. And we ended up like being friends. He ended up being a client, etc. But like this all to say that the way you deal. Sometimes it's not about what you're saying. It's about these small things that happen in the way you communicate them
Yeah.
that allow for the whole group to facilitate. Okay. Last question before we go into sailing. One of the main aspects that you explore is community building and how to actually build thriving communities. And once again, like I know that that's a very complex topic. I would say it's one of those topics that I'm personally interested in, but I have no experience. So I guess that my question is, can you tell me what after like doing all of these community building experiences, exercises, etc., either in workshops, in sailing, all of the different things. Is there a common pattern that you think exists when trying to build or within a strong community?
Mm, for sure, it's many. I guess like the kind of fundamentals that come into my mind, and it's kind of funny because when it comes to community building, I always come back to Richard Bartlett and his work. It's just like one of the biggest inspirations. And yeah, like just things like people before projects, and just this idea
Mm,
of getting to know the people through working on something with them in a small group and just having the spaces. Hey, let's meet for a couple of months, whether it's online or in person, and whether it's, just getting to know each other and supporting each other through emotional things, or whether it's reading a book together or creating a music performance. And through that process, it has an end. So it's not like forever, but it has like this period of time that we devote to getting to know each other in some rhythm. And from there, amazing relationships sprout. And you will find that, probably not everybody will be your close friend, and probably not everybody that you meet in your life will be, a close collaborator for everything. But we usually, all of us tend to have many different projects, and like to live a satisfying community or social life, you probably need, you need close friends that get you and they support you no matter what happens to you. And then, you probably want some creative outputs, friends that, you can play music with or dance or whatever it is that you do for creativity. And,
mm-hmm,
there's so many other areas. So it's a little bit about like, hey, how can I find those people that I can do all these things that I want to be doing with. And
mm,
sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're actually different groups. And that's okay. So like there's this whole process of, I guess, building trust and figuring out who are the people that you want to do things with. Like this is kind of now yeah, like I'm always, doing many projects at once, but one big thing for this year for me is to getting ready for building a home kind of neighborhood somewhere. And,
wow.
that's maybe a different story for another time. But yeah, like
Yeah.
I came to this conclusion that what is for me right now the most important is to find a group of people that I want to do it with. And like where we're going to end up being, it's kind of a secondary question. Like, yes, it's
Mm,
important, but actually, I would rather have the people that I really want to be my neighbors, and live in a suboptimal land rather
mm-hmm,
than live in a perfect land with suboptimal neighbors, you
mm,
know?
yeah.
So people before projects. And yeah, relationships, take time. And also, of course, people change. And there's this whole process of getting to know each other. It's not something that you can just do in a week. It's
Yeah.
more of a long-term process. And then, yeah, so now I'm organizing all these different events, different, sailing adventures and creative masterminds and different types of projects. And I just keep inviting people that I want to spend time with to join me on different quests.
Yeah.
And through that, I'm also discovering, who are my close friends and who are the people that I'm actually like, we can do a business together because we just work so well together. And,
Mm-hmm.
and with this person, like best road trip buddy, but, I don't want to do
Set
something
up a
different. So
business.
it's
Yeah.
just like finding, finding the right people for the right pieces. And And I feel that's a blessing. Like you don't need to be like close friends with every single human, but just by creating all those different links, that also strengthens the community around you. And whether it's like a digital community or whether it's a geographical proximity neighborhood kind of thing,
Yeah.
or a regenerative village where you live with hundreds of other people, it it just everybody benefits from that. Like the more cool links you have, and then ideally they also create something on value for the surrounding,
Yeah.
whatever it is, whether it's a community online or in person. Um, that has tremendous impact, and it's quite simple, like, hey, let's have a singing group and then let's make a singing performance for people in our village. Wow, beautiful. It's just like such a simple thing, and you create reasons for people to gather, you strengthen your relationships, and who knows what's going to come out of that. Like maybe,
Yeah.
you'll find the life partner, maybe you will connect two of your friends to be together because actually that's, perfect match. Or yeah, maybe some business will start from it. Like, who knows? But that's the thing. Like, you don't really know in the beginning. It's more like running multiple experiments with people. And I think this is maybe the most precious advice slash thing that I got introduced to, like running those multiple experiments with different groups of people and just see what happens and don't attach too much pressure. And sometimes the group will end after 2 months, and you had a good time, but that's it. It
Yeah.
just now lived its purpose, and that's okay because you also learn then better how to interact with those kind of groups, and
Yeah.
like you learn different tools and techniques to add to your toolkit, not just as a facilitator, but as a
As a
human.
human being, yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yes.
So in that way, everybody benefits.
Great, great answer. Okay, so uh Michal, like you were the only guest that I've had so far where before we even started to record, I knew that I wanted to have an episode 2. And that relates with like the journey that you're about to do. And so I guess that, in these last few minutes of the conversation, I would love to for you to explain like what's your current sailing project, what's going to happen, like the history of it, and then people can know that once you actually finish the project, we'll find a way to record a second episode to know like all of the how was the overall experience. So tell us a bit about your next sailing journey.
Sure. So yeah, today is my almost the last day on this beautiful old continent of ours, and tomorrow I'm gonna get my ass to Chile, and we're gonna sail to Antarctica on a 35-meter sailing ship. In a group, I think we'll be 15 people. So it's like the 20 couple, 22, 23 days trip. Um, and yeah, it's freaking exciting. I mean, I've never been there, and it's definitely one of those places that I would like to see in my life. So I'm very excited for it. And basically, I mean, the story of this project, it's kind of yeah, it's a long-winded thing, but I'll keep it kind of relatively short. So as I mentioned before, I did this sailing school, right? And I'm in the process of getting a commercial license to be an officer slash captain on sailing ships up to 500
Hmm.
tons. So we're talking about, many mast, big, funky sailing ships, pirate ships, the good stuff that still sails, and there's plenty in the world, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And as a part of that, I need to spend some time at sea. So this is what I'm doing. And last summer I was really lucky to sail on Greyhound, which is this incredible sailing ship. Like, check it out. It's just beautiful wooden replica of a lugger from 18th century. It has 4 cannons on board. It's like, yeah, this kind of
Wow.
stuff you get when you sail this kind of ships. So it's really like a dream. And as I was looking for a sailing trip for this fall, my dream was to cross the Atlantic. Like, that was kind of the priority. But then this other trip fell on my lap, which was, yeah, basically the opportunity to organize a sailing trip on a ship that goes to Antarctica. And it was incredibly syn- such a good synchronicity, because it was not just the opportunity to get my sea time, which basically usually means that you kind of volunteer, because I don't still have my paper that would qualify
License,
me
yeah.
legally to be the part of the crew. So essentially, you're kind of volunteering, and there's usually the common model for this kind of trips is that people just book them. So you have
Hmm.
individuals going to a ship website, they book the trip, and then you have a collection of random nice people that just want to go somewhere on that sailing ship. But I was put in a position where I could bring my own group. So I took a bit of financial risk. I kind of, stepped into that. I rented the ship basically with its crew and started recruiting people that I want to go to Antarctica with. And, connecting with this idea of building communities, it's precisely this. Like, who are the people that like fuck, I want to get stuck at the end of the world for 20 days on this tiny boat and have this experience of a lifetime together. Like, what are we going to learn of each other?
Yeah.
Like, who are the people that I want there,
Yeah.
and it's I'm very excited for it. I mean, it's of course it's a Drake Passage, especially. So going like from Chile to the peninsula of Antarctica is one of the most challenging places in the world, or it can be. Of course, it depends on the
It
weather. We go
depends.
there in
Yeah.
the southern hemisphere summer, so hopefully we'll get some like
Good
relatively
weather.
easy weather window to cross. But yeah, this place can be notorious. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, just this opportunity to sail on a ship like this to a place like that with friends or friends of friends, it's
Yeah.
just something incredible. And this is another trip that I'm organizing. So I'm already like the last summer I organized a burn on a sailing ship. So kind of took the Burning Man concept, built Party Strike,
Oh,
apply it on
wow.
a sailing ship. So we spent 3 days doing a refit of the ship, like, get your hands dirty, work on the ship full time, degreasing, cutting metal, like all sorts of things that needed to be done. And then we sailed for a week and then, built our decorations and all sorts of stuff and had a great
Wow.
party. So that was more like a burn vibe. And now I'm also curious about this expedition vibe, which is a
Mm.
second type of sailing project that I want to organize. And
Yeah.
this is my prototype. So, I'm taking all sorts of arsenal of tools, like linking it back to facilitation. I always create a log on the book, which is like kind of a collaborative journal reflection slash funky artifact that we all create together, documenting our trip, which is like a physical object, which yeah makes a big difference. And there's going to be plenty of facilitated activities, but actually, what I'm learning from ships is that the ocean is the ultimate facilitator. So
Mm.
you're not going to hold a sharing circle when everybody is seasick and puking. It's just it doesn't work in the same way. So it's like the next level of improvisation where it's the nature that facilitates you first, and
Yeah.
then based on what is available, you get to experience something. So, we just had a call recently a few days ago to just kind of get to know each other and, have a connection before the trip. And that was a very interesting moment because now it really feels we're going, like some people are already there or getting ready to fly to Chile, and start there. So this dream of going to Antarctica, it already feels it's happening, but then that's when the space becomes interesting for me because the second question is, okay, so we go to Antarctica, and then what? Like, because
Yeah.
it's not the kind of crowd that will just walk around and take pictures of penguins. Like, I mean, yes, sure, but what else can we do when we're there? And what are your dreams for Antarctica? Like, why are we doing this? And I didn't create like some kind of more of a specific umbrella, like this is a research project or this is no, it's a group of friends going to a very remote place on a sailing ship. It's very
Yeah.
simple frame, but from there we have a lot of space to explore. So
Yeah.
hey, like, do we want to do cold dips and do a rave party? Like, sure, like let's figure it out. Like, what can we do there that will make our experience not just about being in Antarctica, take pictures and go home and have a
But about the
t-shirt,
group.
but like, what can we do together when we're there? Like, what's this journey going to become? And
Yeah.
again, I don't know what it's going to be because I can't predict possibly first the weather and the sailing conditions and all of that. And I have no idea what to expect from Antarctica apart from, some videos, pictures, and a bit of research. But like, how does it actually feel to be in the most remote part of the world when there's like no vegetation, there's just sea
Ice.
animals and ice,
Yeah.
it's a very different place. I can imagine also energetically and just how it affects you just being there. So So yeah, it feels like a very open canvas for anything that needs to emerge. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, I have full confidence in the boat. It's like they've been going around the world for years. It's a traditionally rigged expedition vessel, which is perfect because it means, you know, you have to do all the work yourself and pull the ropes and, you know, participate in sailing the ship, which is part of the fun. Like I don't want to be driven around on a ferry. Like it just makes no
Yeah.
sense to me. Um, so yeah, there's this whole piece of also sail training because I do want to move more into organizing sailing trips, maybe co-own a bigger ship one day. So I am looking into, you know, training people that then in the future can be crew for different types of expeditions.
Yeah.
And I see this one is like the second of three kind of types of what I want to do. Like the first one was the burns, and I'm gonna do another one this summer. Then there's this expedition style
Exploration.
trip,
Yeah.
so Antarctica this time, probably, you know, choose a different location in the world next time. And then the final would be something around leadership training to again connect it to facilitation, improvising, and do it on ships. Because
Yeah.
I feel this is something that is so potent. Like there's so many opportunities to collaborate and do teamwork in a
Yeah.
different way when you're on a ship. Like it's very real, it's very grounded, it's very in your body. And it can be also challenging and emotionally tricky. And, you know, there's this whole component of being on a tiny space. So this is kind of the next kind of trip that I'm going to be prototyping this year.
Yeah.
And let's see how it goes.
Yeah, look, such a great answer, and yeah, like I'm really excited about that. I really, and that's why, like as you're saying, like there's no way to predict what's going to happen. And so I'm excited for you, and I can't wait to have the conversation once you come back and tell us like, well, we were thinking about this, and then all of this happened. So, Mikhail, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview. I really, really enjoy it. My last question is, if people wanna get in touch with you or follow you closely around your journey, etc., like, what's the best place that I can do so?
Yeah, my website is probably the best place. So just my name, my surname.com, michalkorzonek.com. And yeah, there's quite a few different ways there. I have a newsletter where I publish every new moon. There's some kind of letter that I write electronically. There's a little mini blog that I have on Telegram, and Twitter also works. So
Mm-hmm.
those are usually the places, but my website is a bit of a rabbit hole of all the tons of different projects, and from there you can find whatever resonates.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Beautiful. We'll leave the links in the description for all of that. Mikal, once again, thank you so much for taking the time. It was a pleasure. Everyone, go follow Mikal to see what's going to happen in this journey. In the meantime, since you're here, please make sure that, take a moment to leave a like on the video or subscribe our YouTube channel or maybe even rate us on Spotify or whatever platform you use to hear your podcast, okay? Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you, Mikal.
Thank you.